Okay, why don't we do the call to order?
Okay, so roll call for the meeting on March 8th, 2021. Councilor Mccall.
Here.
Councilor Connell.
Present.
Councilor Shan.
Present.
Councilor Tantar.
Here.
Councilor Vogel.
Present.
Councilor Wallace.
Present.
Councilor Zede.
Here.
Councilor Devlin, for the record, is not here. Councilor Khan.
Present.
Councilor Lane. Here. Council President Eigenman.
Here.
We have 10 present, more than a quorum.
All right, great, thank you. Late filed items.
There are 3 late file items. There's an application, an appointment late file for Owen Smith to the Water Sewer Commission until 3/31/2023. There's a communication, which is a letter to the postmaster from Councilor Connell and Jenny Donahue. And then we have an application, which is an event application for the moving wall submitted by Dennis Palazzo.
Motion to waive the rules and accept.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait,
Aye.
no.
Roll call.
Can't forget that. Roll call, first one of the night. Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Point of order, please. Did we receive those? Did you send us those?
Actually, they're in your
They're all in the
packet.
packet.
Oh,
Yeah, they're in the
So the
packet.
answer is yes.
thank you. I missed them.
Yeah, they made the packet. They did not make the deadline.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, now we'll go to public comment. Each speaker gets 2 minutes. Please just, when you're called upon, give your name and your home address, and then I'll keep time. So the first person is Ted Epstein.
Hi, thank you very much for having me address the meeting tonight. I just wanted to mention that I was notified about the procedure for how to use the city space for outdoor dining. I want to start off by saying thank you very much for letting us use it. It really was a big help last year. It really helped keep us going. I've had a lot of comments from our customers saying how much they enjoyed it and appreciated it and hope that we would continue it on. We are hoping to somehow keep it going and to try and get it going as soon as possible this year. We know that there's a long process for getting it done, and we just hope that, you know, the city council will take into consideration our concerns and how much we really, you know, look forward to it and need it, and help us expedite it as best we can. I do not want to, you know, seem ungrateful, because again, you know, you were very generous in the way that it was pushed through last year so quickly. There were a lot of other generous things that the city did for us this year to help us through. And I just want to say that if there's any way that we can work to help, you know, get stuff to you so that we can expedite it as quickly as possible and get it going, we would really appreciate it.
Thank you. We just need your home address.
Oh, I'm sorry, 46 Warren Street.
Okay, thank you. And the clerk, I don't know, Mr. Epstein, if you got an email, but the clerk should have sent out the form last week. Did you get it?
I didn't get it, but I did receive a copy of it. We had a meeting of some restaurant people this morning, and I did get a copy of it, and I've been working very hard to get, you know, my layout, you know, to the specifications that you like, and hopefully I'll have that done tomorrow or the next day.
Great.
and submit it immediately. But
All right.
my understanding is that I hope I'm not going over my time.
Well, I'm sorry, that's my fault. I engaged you, but you have a question?
Yeah, just that I just submitted to Mr. Jones and then
Yep.
do I attend meetings or anything like that?
No, I don't think that's, that would be the licensing board.
Okay, so.
Like you did, just
it
like you
goes
did
to a
last
meeting,
year.
And then it goes to a subcommittee, and then it goes back to the city council, and then we go to the licensing commission.
Well, I'll give you a call offline, but it doesn't, we haven't
Okay.
passed the legislation. It doesn't necessarily go to a subcommittee.
Okay,
Okay, I'll give you a call.
okay, great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Back to the list. Lisa Medina. Name and
Hello?
address. Hello?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, name and address, please.
Yeah, it's Owen Smith, O-W-E-N, last name Smith, and 175 Story Avenue.
Okay, did you want to say something or?
Yeah, I was just taking the opportunity to introduce myself. I wanted to volunteer on the Water and Sewer Commission. I believe my information's in the packet. I looked at the meeting packet that was published online.
Okay, yes, thank you. It's going to be referred to the Public Utilities Committee.
Okay, thank
They'll
you.
contact you. Thank you very much. Next is Jenny Donahue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Jenny Donahue, 18 Cherry Street, Chair of the Newburyport Commission on Disabilities. Thank you, Council President and councilors, for your time. There's a couple items in your packet tonight that I wanted to speak to. One is obviously the letter in conjunction with Councilor Connell about the Green Street mailbox. I just wanted to sort of report to you all that this is something that we've been hearing a lot about from the Disability Commission, and a lot of folks are complaining. A lot of folks are finding this to be a serious loss of access. And we really just are hoping that collaboratively, this letter will help facilitate getting that mailbox back. And I hope that all of the councilors support this letter. And secondly, I wanted to just quickly comment on the project at Fuller Field. I know you're going to be voting on that tonight, and I just wanted to speak up in terms of the accessibility that's going to come of that project for that space. Right now, it's not a very accessible recreation space, but their plans are including so much accessibility that, you know, it's 100% worth it just for the amount of access that's going to be created for the entire community. So I hope that is considered by everybody and passed unanimously, because it's very much a worthwhile cause and project. So that was all. Thank you all so much and have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Nancy Caswell.
Good evening, Nancy Caswell, 3 Jefferson Court. I'm just jumping on today to echo Ted's sentiments that he earlier mentioned. We had a restaurant meeting earlier today. I know you guys are going to be voting on the procedure for outdoor patio use and occupying city space. And we just wanted to urge the council to consider running it the same way that we ran it last year. So we don't get caught up in going to multiple meetings, and just request the opportunity to move as quickly as we can on it to ensure that we are in place as soon as weather permits us to be.
Thank you. Next is Mike McCormick. Mr. McCormick, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Mike McCormick, 16 Norman Ave. I'm the head track coach, outdoor track coach in Newburyport High. I've been coaching there since 1993. I also run some running and track programs for Newburyport Youth Services, as well as some adult running programs. So I'm just asking you for approval of phase 2 of Fuller Field. Specifically, the bathrooms go without saying how important those are. The stands will allow fans and parents to get off the field and save the wear and tear on the track, because that's often where people are standing now for other events, and get away from the infield during our track meets. I wouldn't say it's a safety issue, but it's definitely a logistical issue. And of course, the parking is a safety issue on Low Street. Anybody who's been down there at the time during a track meet or a busy sports event knows the issues with the parking down there. So thank you for your support in phase 1. So I hope you can help us get this phase 2 going. I think the Newburyport community and Newburyport track program really deserves this support and this financing. Thank you.
Thank you. Just need your address.
16 Norman Avenue.
Thank you. Maybe you said it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Next is Peter Fitzsimmons.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Councillor Connell for his communication on the situation with the mailbox that somebody else already commented on. I think it's just a tremendous inconvenience, particularly bad during the months or the days when we had snow and ice all down there, and you had to, you know, park halfway out in the middle of the street and then walk down. And it's just a total inconvenience. That mailbox on Green Street had been there I've been living in the city for almost 50 years, and I think I've been using it all that time. So I don't understand why they moved it. It's almost right in front of the city hall, less than 100 yards from the police station. Put a webcam if they have to at the post office to monitor it. But yeah, I just thank the councillor for his communication. I hope you can do something about it. So it's Peter Fitzsimmons, Ward 4, 7 Arlington Street, Newburyport.
Thank you. Next is Thomas Murray. Wait, hold on. I have to promote him to a panelist. Hold on. Mr. Murray, are you there?
Hi, thanks. Yes, this is Tom Murray. I'm from 7 Fox Run in Ward 5. I'm just calling in favor of the track program. I think, as people have talked previously, I'm a huge proponent of the organization and the group that runs the track program. I have 2 athletes now that probably won't see the benefits of the facility, but what the community has done for my kids is tremendous, and I would like to see it for future generations. Additionally, I think things such as the Special Olympics group that uses that facility would benefit greatly from having stands and full facilities so that they can host organizations. If you've ever been to any of the Special Olympics stuff in town, it's probably the best draw. If you want to feel good about yourself, please attend. Kudos to the Spinnies and the great program they run. So I am in full favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sean Riordan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Sean Riordan, 5 Lois Street. I hope you're all doing well this evening. I too am in favor of completing the Bradley Fuller Field project. I think this is a long time coming. I think this goes much further beyond track. I think this really is a great community project that will have a lot of uses outside of, specifically just track. I do think a lot of different organizations are going to be able to utilize this space, and I think it's going to be a great asset to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Chris Keeley.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. This is Chris Keeley. I live at 8 Payson Street in Newburyport, Massachusetts. Calling in tonight about the support for the initiative for phase 2 of the completion of the track facility. So I've been a coach at various levels in the city, from people in their 70s down to kids running the High Street Mile. So I've seen many people use that facility. I think to echo Ms. Donahue's, I believe it was, point about accessibility, it's very important. A lot of people use that facility for rehabilitation. A huge contingent of Special Olympians use that as well. I use the track a lot as an older athlete myself, and the track is physically becoming degraded by the amount of dirt and gravel that's getting on it. So it speaks to, we want to invest and protect that investment that we've made. And so please support it. It's really a tremendous community asset, not just the track and field program, but obviously the soccer and lacrosse programs and obviously Special Olympics. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Paul LaRosa.
Hi, this is Paul LaRosa, 8 Wildwood Drive, Ward 5. I'd also like to express my support for the track and everything that goes with it at Fuller Field. My wife and I are active runners, really enjoy the strong community we have here in town. We have 3 girls who are also very active in athletics, including scholastic activities at the track and other community events, such as things that Mike McCormick and Chris Keeley just talked about. We've been proud of the work the city and the CPC and the private groups have done so far to get this track program working and to really start the project. But to be honest, we're a little frustrated that it's been 6 years and we haven't finished the project. So we strongly encourage the council to approve the completion of the project, including all the amenities that the groups have talked about here, parking and restrooms and walkways and seating. So we just really encourage you to take this opportunity to put a stamp and finish this project as it was planned from the beginning. Thanks very much.
Thank you. That's it for public comment. Now we'll go to mayor's comment. Mayor Holliday, are you there?
I am.
Great.
Good evening, President Igerman, members of the City Council. I believe you have my update. In terms of where we are with COVID, since the start of the month, we have 8 additional positive cases. And unfortunately, we had 2 additional deaths for a total of 1,124 cases to date. The state reopening plan, I gave you information about that. It's also on the state website, so I'm not going to go through all of the details, but it's exciting that we're moving forward into step 2 of phase 3. And if all continues to go well in terms of numbers and the health data, we should be approaching step 1 of phase 4 on March 22nd. So this is all really good news for our businesses and for our state. The one point that I despite all the information that's out there about masks, I strongly encourage everyone to continue to wear masks to prevent the spread. We certainly aren't out of this yet. Would like to take a moment to recognize those who participated in the COVID Memorial Day, March 1. Thank you to the council for recognizing that day. We rang our church bells across the city 33 times at that time. That's the number of deaths we had. And then our interfaith group came together. We had 3 ministers and a priest who put together with students a really, I think, very moving memorial service for families and friends of the victims of COVID. I am so pleased to announce that our regional vaccine, the Lower Merrimack Valley Regional Vaccine Clinic, has been approved by the state. We have received 3,240 Pfizer vaccines, and we will launch this site on Saturday and Sunday. I just sent out a code red to the community to let everyone know that at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, those who are eligible to receive the vaccine can register on the MassVax site For the Amesbury site, Saturday, it will run from 9 to 5. At 7 p.m. tomorrow night, you may register for the Sunday site. We're trying to give a little advance notice to the communities that are supporting this clinic. This past weekend, we had our another clinic for second round doses of first responders that went very smoothly. We also worked with the Newburyport Housing Authority for our seniors and low-income families and administered 200 doses to those seniors at the senior center. I'm very grateful to Tracy Watson and Paula Burke for all of their efforts in terms of transporting the seniors for the vaccination. Plum Island, we just received information from GZA, Anders' work with Mass DOT on a new design, which includes timber pilings and core bags. There's 5 different options. I received more of those today. The next step is to begin working with the state around how we mobilize and move this project forward. The one issue that I'm concerned about is whether or not DCR is questioning whether or not we need a MEPA review. If we do that, that will push this project into the summer, and I'm hoping we can avoid delaying it that long because we need protection much sooner than that. We also are actively working on the Pasquatica River dredge in New Hampshire and the Merrimack River dredge, and have agreed with the 3 communities, Salisbury, Newbury, and Newburyport, how that sand will be distributed between the 2 dredges among the 3 sites. There'll be a press release coming out later in the week on that. We are continuing to work with the Army Corps of Engineers on this project. The notice has dropped in the Federal Register, and then we are embarking on a very complex permitting process and hope to get this dredge done, the Merrimack River one in particular, in September. We have another Merrimack River Beach Alliance meeting on Friday, and at that time we will hopefully be able to present more information about where we are with the dredge and with the protection of the reservation terrace area. Fuller Field, I thank all the people who spoke on public comment and support all of their statements. I thank the counselors for your due diligence on this project, and it really is time to move forward and complete this project. Would like to thank the counselors, the Park Commission, CPA members, Lise Reed, the Park Administration, and particular font, Friends of Newburyport Track, not to be confused with Friends of Newburyport Trees. I encourage your favorable review of that. City Hall reopening. Our reopening committee has begun meeting again to finalize plans for reopening City Hall. We are targeting April 1st to fully open City Hall. This will not result in having the City Hall open for meetings because we cannot have that numbers of people in City Hall at this point, and gatherings remain restricted. We had brought in Ockers to do an evaluation of the auditorium, but it is far too costly and really difficult to wire that auditorium in order to be appropriate for combination of hybrid and Zoom meetings. As of tomorrow, we will be returning to in-person city council, school committee meetings at the Senior Community Center, and that's the site we're going to work on in terms of upgrading our facilities there. One other note about school committee is tomorrow night at 6:30, there's a special school committee meeting where the superintendent will roll out the next phase of bringing more students back for in-person learning, which is very exciting. Also just wanted to report that we had some problems with the last windstorm at our wastewater treatment plant where we temporarily lost power. We do have generator backup. So the service was not interrupted, but the power did damage our PLC equipment, programmable logic controllers, and DPS has submitted a claim to our insurance for the PLC and the UPS to be upgraded and replaced as a result. And these components are critical for our SCADA system, which is the brains really behind the wastewater treatment plant. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes. Downtown businesses, again, you heard from some of the restaurateurs today. We had a meeting. They're very excited and anxious to be able to reopen outside. And we are still operating under governor's emergency orders. And I'm hoping we can expedite this process as we did last year. We had a 3-person subcommittee of the city council with myself and reviewed those, went to the liquor commission. Things went really smoothly and we had no issues last year. We anticipate the bids coming in and awarding them. Bids for the parklets will be in on Wednesday, and we hope to move fairly quickly on awarding that grant and hiring an installer and working with the restaurateurs who want those. I wanted to let you know that we did receive a technical assistance grant from the state. It's for their rapid recovery plan, the Mass Downtown Initiative. We have a call with their team tomorrow to learn about how this program will roll out and help to market and other components to reopen our downtown.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor. You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda.
The agenda consists this evening of the approval of 2 minutes, February 22nd and February 25th. And actually, Councilor Tantar brought to my attention that in the minutes for February 25th, prior to the motion to approve as amended, there was a motion to amend that passed 6-5, and I would like permission to add that to the minutes. Other than that, those minutes, I think, are accurate as are February 22nd. There's 2 communications. Communication 310, which is the annual city audit by Melanson for FY 2020. That's to go to Budget and Finance. There's communication 312, which is Merrimack Valley Planning Commission FY 2022 assessment. Again, that's supposed to go to Budget and Finance. There are 2 transfers. Transfer 88, which is from the Water Department on sick leave account, 25,000 to compensated absences fund. That again is to go to Budget and Finance. And likewise, transfer 89 goes to Budget and Finance. That's highway streetlights, 12,000 to park maintenance of trees, same amount. There's 1 appointment which is to be referred to Public Utilities Committee. That's the appointment of Owen Smith, 175 Story Avenue, to the Water Sewer Commission until 3/31/2023. Following items are removed from their respective committees. Budget and Finance, Order 132, Order 136, Communication 189, Ordinance 63, Order 216, and Communication 284. Planning and Development has the following items out automatically. Communication 297, Order 238, Communications 305 and 303. And Public Utilities has 1 item, which is Order 230, water and sewer fees. And that, with the change to the minutes, is the consent agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve as amended.
Well, hold on. On the minutes, I mean, you want to just pull them and bring them back next time?
We could, either way you want to do it, I can do that easily. Yep.
Let's just do it that way. That way we can all read them again and make sure, because Councilor Tantar probably, I mean, he'll need to see it, so.
Very good. Sure, we'll pull that. I'll bring it in on the 29th.
All right, now I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Richard, I'm here.
Thank you. And Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, mayor's update.
Motion to receive and file?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
And Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Very good.
On to communications. Let the fun begin.
So this is a communication 306, which is the updated memo on market landing appropriation. That was continued actually from March 8th, 2021.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Motion to receive and file communication 306. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tontar.
Yes.
Council Vogel.
Yes.
Council Wallace.
Yes.
Council Zede.
Yes.
Council Devlin.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Council Lane.
Yes.
And Councilor Agaman.
Yes. Next item.
Next item is the letter from Councilor Tontar regarding the legal opinion from KP Law on council salaries.
Councilor Tontar, did you want to?
Yeah, I think I need some guidance on this. I know this is a measure, and I think by our rules, it requires 2 votes. Although all councilors have seen this already.
Well, I think I know the way measure is defined, anything that's a vote, but things that are sort of internal to the council, for example, remember we adopt our rules in one night and we elect a president in one night. And I'm going to rule that it's not a measure for purposes of the charter. And to inform the public, this is just a request to the council. The council is the client and they have a confidential letter from their attorney. So 6 of us could vote in favor of waiving the confidentiality privilege. I don't think that's a measure.
Okay, great. I will then move that we approve my request to make the memorandum public.
Second.
Second. Anyone else want to speak on the matter? Okay, roll call.
On the motion to approve communication 311 to make it public. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
If I might, Mr. President, in terms of guidance, how would you like me to make that public? We can
well,
bring it in on the next packet. I can post it on the website.
Well, let's ask the moving Councilor Tontar, what did you want to do?
I would like the public to be able to see it and of course the local media. So I think that's probably the best way to do it. Bring it in the next packet.
Okay, you can do that. So it'll come in as a communication and then we can receive and file it and then it'll be on record.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. The next item, another late file. This is the postmaster letter. Tell us about it.
So this is from Jenny Donahue and Councilor Connell. It's addressed to Postmaster Paul Capitalupo. And I'm told that the first paragraph, which said, instead, place a mailbox in front of the post office on Pleasant Street that is 8 feet from the curb. It should be 10 feet from the curb. Other than that, I think it's straightforward. It's seeking that the box be placed where it was on Green Street so that all, including anyone with a disability, can drive up to it. If I've summarized that correctly, Councilor Connell?
Yes, I think you have.
All right, well, this one's a little trickier because it is communication to an outside party. But again, it would be a letter. We would be instructing our clerk to send a letter. So I'm a little more uncomfortable ruling that it's not a measure, but I think I can do that. Again, it's sort of internal business, as if we were authorizing the clerk to pick up the phone and call the postmaster. So I would allow a vote tonight. Again, I can be overruled by a 2/3 supermajority if people think I've got that wrong. Okay, is there a motion? Councilor Connell.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm going to seek some guidance on what kind of motion this requires. I can express my intention and allow other councilors to chime in if that's permissible.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you've presented the letter, it's in the packet, the public have seen it. I think it would be whether to instruct the clerk to transmit the letter, I think.
I would move that the council instruct the clerk to transmit this letter to the postmaster, but also solicit the participation and signatures of all the other councilors, not just my name on it, but all of us, to express the will of the community. I think we've all, or at least many of us, have heard from residents. I think Jenny Donahue expressed clearly the support of the Disabilities Commission, and it's not just for folks who are having a hard time getting around. There are many reasons why this particular move is causing some headaches, and I tried to express those in the letter, not the least of which is the fact that placing that post box, that mailbox 10 feet from the curb, right in front of the post office, entices people to stop, double park in many cases, run to the mailbox, drop their letter in, backing up Pleasant Street. Even during COVID times, it becomes a terribly congested area. When in fact the postal authorities asked the city to set aside a space on Green Street so that people could conveniently come down, send a message somewhere in the country or internationally, I guess, too, from that location. And so we gave up some parking at that place when parking's very dear to us, for the purposes of creating a convenience for all the residents of the city, but particularly for those who have a hard time getting around without the assistance of a walker or crutches or a chair in some instances, which is quite a hardship for the disabled, for folks who are unable to move the way other people are. So for lots of reasons that I think I expressed there, I would solicit your support and ask that if you have additions, corrections, I would certainly entertain those tonight or at some point with the clerk and allow him to impose those edits if he sees fit.
Can we get a second? Anybody?
Second.
Okay. Councilor Vogel is next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would be more than willing to add my signature to this and encourage the postmaster to replace that. I am curious, has anybody talked with the postmaster? Do we know why?
Yes.
Yeah, Councilor Connell, why don't you tell the story?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I did call the postmaster and ask him why he felt this compulsion to take away an amenity that the community has enjoyed for so many decades. And he expressed to me, and I think this is probably accurate, that they were trying to crack down on folks who go fishing, that is, drop a sticky on the end of a string and pull some mail out of the slot. He also said that someone had once slid, I don't know in what time frame, a pizza through the slot, which obviously makes a mess. But he also admitted that they had not worked with the police nor notified the city. And having spoken with the city marshal about this, he had some thoughts about how to secure that box and how to make it less likely that people vandalize it or try to steal from the box. I can't imagine that this is the only place in the country where someone has tried to get into a post box and take something out. But I think that there are ways to get around it. They had apparently a postal inspector perched there watching it for a period of time, didn't see any activity that would raise any eyebrows. He just didn't happen to be there when someone went in and tried to take things out of the post box or tried to insert something inappropriate into it. So again, I think that the cure is far worse than the disease in this case, and perhaps we should stand up for all of those residents who enjoy the convenience, or more than convenience, a necessity for those who have a hard time getting in and out of a vehicle to do their business in the downtown area.
Thank you.
Thank you. I yield.
Next is Councillor Tantar.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to offer what I hope will be a friendly amendment, and that is that this also be transmitted to Congressman Seth Moulton's office.
Great
And-
suggestion. That's a very welcome amendment.
And let me, thank you. And does the second have to accept that? I was
Yeah.
the second. I accept it.
That worked out.
Yes, that's funny the way that worked. Yeah, I did a little, I actually did a lot of Googling on this, and this is taking place all over the country. And one of the things I noticed is that some congressional offices had intervened, in particular in California, and the local postmaster had then reversed it. One article I read said it was a temporary reversal. That was going to be reconsidered. They extended it through the election. I haven't seen any follow up on that, but I think it would probably be very helpful if the congressional office put some pressure on the postmaster.
Good.
Okay. Other councilors, and again, the motion, it would put all of our names on it. So if there's an objection from a councilor, I guess you could just not sign it. But let's go, if no one else wants to speak, why don't we go to roll call?
Okay, this is the motion to instruct the clerk to send a letter, both to the past postmaster and Congressman Moulton's office, and to seek all council signatures. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
And Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Excellent.
Okay, so I guess people should email into the clerk if they want their names on it. We can't sign in person, so we'll do it electronically.
Yeah, we could do an electronic signature.
Yeah, we'll do it that way. Application 22, what's that?
Application 22 is not a case of first impression, but a case of first every decade, maybe impression. It is a request to operate a pool table. It's submitted by Banter, Barber, and Clothier, and located at 80 State Street. And he gives certain dates when he would be open. And it describes an 8-foot pool table. It's going to be used for merchandising as well as for recreational use. It is pursuant to our existing ordinances. They're old, section 9-44, and the fee is $5. I'm not sure how I'll go about collecting it, but I trust that.
How about a motion?
Motion to refer to license and permits.
Second.
Any debate? Roll call.
Motion is to refer to license and permits. Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
And Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
And Councilor Agaman.
Yes. Application 23.
Application 23 is submitted by Dennis Palazzo for the moving wall in September 2nd to the 6th at the Mall. He is at the same time submitting an application, I understand, to the Parks Commission. It is complete with the exception, notable exception of insurance, and I've asked him for that, and any signatures, but he did submit it, so we took it in.
Well, I may have missed it, but I'm a little unclear on what it is. What are they doing?
Yeah. He has sent an email, which is not part of this, explaining it.
Oh, okay.
I know if you go to the Moving Wall website, Newburyport pops up as the location for the first week in September, I believe. It's the little I know about it, it says almost as large as a football field. I think it's 1/2 the size of the original wall. It's Vietnam Memorial, obviously. It requires a platform to be built. I know they've looked around town, meaning Dennis has essentially, and sought opinions and has thought that where they do the Flag Day Memorial of Flags at the Mall, they would target that area. And there would need to be a platform built. So there's a lot of details and a lot of work that goes into it.
Motion to refer to public safety.
Second.
Any debate? Roll call.
So-
Oh, no, Counselor Tantar, I was too
Yeah, it's
fast.
not really a debate. So this is going to be entirely located within the mall. Shouldn't that be the Parks Commission that considers this or approves it?
Well, it depends. If there's a commercial component, we have jurisdiction, I think. I'll check that. It's a good question.
And also that's just about the time the field of flags. That's on 9/11. They usually have it up the week before, so
Yeah.
that's going to take some logistics.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll confer with the clerk and with Kim Turner, the chair, and if they have exclusive jurisdiction, then we'll just drop it. But for now, let's vote on it. Counselor Mccall had to say that.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. In discussions with the clerk, the direction that we were trying to take is that the draw of this event is going to put strain on our surrounding streets and et cetera, right? So we thought it would be better to do a joint effort with Parks and Public Safety to accommodate all of the by the ways that will creep up, and we know will creep up, and have a public hearing about it along those lines. So that's really the thought process on our approach to do this. Thank you.
Okay, and forgive me. So Counselor Z, did you move to send it to Public Safety?
I did.
Okay, all right. All right, so does everyone know we're voting on? And then I will check with Kim Turner and get our signal straight, but I understand Counselor McCall's point. Roll call.
Roll call on the motion to go to Public Safety. Counselor McCauley.
Yes.
Counselor Connell.
Yes.
Counselor Shan.
Yes.
Counselor Tantar.
Yes.
Counselor Vogel.
Yes.
Counselor Wallace.
Yes.
Counselor Zede.
Yes.
Counselor Devlin.
Yes.
Counselor Khan.
Yes.
Counselor Lane.
Yes.
And Counselor Igan.
Yes. We've got 2 second reading appointments.
We do. We have appointment 233, which is Joe Copper, 8 Fruit Street, to the Fruit Street Historic Commission, until 3/31/2024. We have appointment 234, which is Cheryl H. Amy, 24 Milk Street, to the Newburyport Housing Authority until 3/31/2026.
Motion to approve on second reading collectively.
Julie, I assume.
Yes.
Anyone else second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Roll call on both appointments. Counselor McCauley.
Yes.
Counselor Connell.
Yes.
Counselor Shan.
Yes.
Counselor Tantar.
Yes.
Counselor Vogel.
Yes.
Counselor Wallace.
Yes.
Counselor Z.
Yes.
Counselor Devlin.
Yes.
Counselor Khan.
Yes.
Counselor Lane.
Yes.
And Counselor Igan.
Yes. Now, on the next 2 items, there's an order and an ordinance. I'm the sponsor on both of them. Counselor Connell was involved in them too, but Counselor Connell, would you be willing to run the show? Would that be more efficient, or do you want to present on those 2?
No, why don't you present? I can run for a moment.
Okay. Clerk Jones, if you could introduce 241, and then Counselor Connell will chair.
241 in essence is that the city council would appropriate and transfer from the waterfront park paid parking fund by majority vote the sum of $150,000 to be used toward compensation of Sasak Associates, the design team selected by the ad hoc committee. Further, the mayor would be authorized to execute and enter into contracts pursuant to Order 1 97 for the contract sum awarded, which was 134,000, which leaves a remaining 16,000 available to the mayor and director of planning as a contingency fund. That's it in essence, I believe.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Tantar. Would anyone like to speak in favor?
If I could.
Counselor Argument.
Yeah, we talked about this last week. I think really the most productive, there are 5 counselors on the ad hoc, but if other counselors have questions, again, to refresh your recollection, we did have 14 bidders, and Sasaki really was the clear winner in all categories, written, verbal, and bid. So I think also we did strike a good balance down on the committee where there's $16,000 extra. So if something comes up, staff can move quickly, but it's not an exorbitant extra. And with that, I hope you will approve it.
Thank you, Counselor. Other counselors? Raise your, I'm not seeing any hands going up.
No, Counselor Zede, I think.
Counselor Zede?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to speak quickly. I opposed approval on the ad hoc as one of the 5, and the primary reason for my my vote in that, and will be the same tonight, is the final statement of this is related to, not to exceed a $5 million for an approximate budget. And what I had hoped we could do is just to slow down just a little bit to try and really flesh out that number a little bit more. Because I want to get to a project and get to a design that we can actually do and actually take care of. And I understand there are pressures here as far as time and so forth, and I have no disagreement that Sasaki was the best, having reviewed all the bids in conjunction with my colleagues on that committee, and that the amount for the approval is not unreasonable. But I just, I continue to be concerned that we do things out of order and we approve design money before we really have a good scope of what the project should cost. So that's the reason for my objection. It has nothing to do with whether wanting to move forward on the waterfront or not. But I also oppose when we, put grass in sort of hastily on the waterfront a couple of years ago or 18 months ago, and unfortunately just can't find my way to a yes on this one tonight. So that's the reason why. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? I'm looking for hands. Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call.
The
This
motion
requires a simple majority. Is that correct, Clerk?
Yes. I believe so.
Yes.
The simple appropriation.
Correct.
Motion approved. Order 241. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tantar.
Yes.
Council Vogel.
Yes.
Council Wallace.
Yes.
Council Zede.
No.
Council Devlin.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Council Lane.
Yes.
Councilor Argument.
Yes.
Motion passes 10-1.
Very well. Thank you, counselors. And we'll move on to ordinances. We have ordinance 70. Can you read the ordinance or at least summarize it, please?
Yeah, ordinance 70 is a proposal to submit to the voters certain minor amendments to the home rule charter that we have. Let me see if I can, it's not that long, but it is in pertinent part, it is a change to the definitions under the word city office, which is now defined as a position having charge of a city department. And this language would be added, including without limitation, the position of city solicitor. Then moving on to section 2-6, exercise of powers, rules, quorums. It says now special meetings shall be noticed by delivering in the hand or to the place of business or residence of each member of the city council. This would say, or subsection 2, by email to each member of the city council with electronic confirmation of receipt. Next section, 2-9, ordinances, other measures. It says no measure shall be passed. This would add the language, no measure quote, that is an ordinance or an order, quote, shall be passed finally on the date it was introduced. And then that same language is added to subsection C, which is the charter objections section. 3.1 mayor qualifications, prohibitions under section D now states no former mayor shall hold any compensated appointed city office or city employment. This adds the language, nor shall they appear personally before any city agency as agent or attorney for anyone other than themselves, their spouse, their parents, their children, or their siblings, until 1 year, it goes on to say. But that prior clause was added. And then at the bottom of that prohibition clause, it says, quote, except as state law may otherwise expressly permit, a lawyer who has formerly served as mayor shall at no time represent a client in connection with the matter in which the lawyer participated personally and substantially while serving as mayor, unless the city council gives its informed consent in writing. Section 6-5 capital improvement budget. The date has been changed for submission from April 1st to May 15th. And likewise, the hearing date, which was on or before June 1st, would be on before July 1st. And lastly, section 9-7, uniform procedures. There's a sentence in there now that says all documents shall be public record and certified copies shall be placed on file with the offices of the city clerk and in the city public library. That would be the last clause, public library would be stricken, and it would say on the website within 15 days of their approval. That is submitted by Councilor Eigenman. I think that's the gist.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve on first reading.
Second. And second was? I didn't hear the second.
Tanta.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Eigenman, would you like to address this matter?
Yes, as I mentioned, I think at our last meeting, this comes out of two efforts. First, there was a special committee chaired by Councilor Tantar, which wrapped up May 1st a year ago. They made a whole series of recommendations, and then we took it to the General Government Committee, and we worked on it some more. And these are the minor ones that we came up with. Again, minor amendments can be approved by the voters. These still have, I believe, these still have to be reviewed by the Attorney General before they can go to the voters, even though we're a city. I could be wrong about that, but that's my understanding. And I could answer questions about each one. The clerk explained each one. I think the only thing that may need further explanation now is 3-1D prohibitions. The language at the very end, I don't think I provided that exact language. We talked about in committee the earlier language about appearing personally for a year. You know, Councilor Connell had characterized that as a cooling off period because, of course, most of the officials will have been appointed by the mayor. So the idea is that there'll be some turnover after a year and it won't be quite as incestuous. And then the last bit of language, though, those 4 lines, that's taken from the state's conflict of interest laws. And a lot of people are not aware that that's the law. But I'm proposing to put it into the charter to make it clear. And an example would be, negotiating a complex agreement and then going, leaving the mayor's office. Again, this only applies to practicing attorneys. A law degree isn't the only, you have to be a practicing attorney. And the practicing attorney could not then go to the other side and get hired by an adverse party without our permission. It is possible we can waive it, the city council, but there would have to be a conscious act. And those are my comments. I hope you'll support this on first reading. Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the members? Councilor Zede.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to propose an addition to this under a section that's not listed here, but it's section 6-4, which is action on the operating budget. And so under 6-4B, It basically says adoption of the budget. The city council shall adopt the proposed budget with or without amendment within 45 days following the date of the proposed budget is filed with the city clerk. In amending, the city council may delete, et cetera. But then it says as well, if the council fails to take any action on any item within that 45 days, that amount effectively becomes approved. So I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the language I propose is rather than the 45 days, I suggest using language that is the city council shall adopt the proposed operating budget with or without amendments on or before the last day of the current fiscal year or period, and then leaving the rest of it the same, except again, replacing the 45 days by the last day of the current fiscal year or period. So I'll make that motion to amend, and if I can get a second, I'll explain why I came to that conclusion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Councilor Zede?
Thank you. If I may speak to it. So the council president in his proposal seeks to help harmonize the CIP with the budget. The reason I don't like the 45 days is that, I understand in theory and in a passing by quick, you say May 15th, 45 days, that equals June 30th. But actually the months aren't exactly 30 days. And we'll actually run into this, and it's not always possible that you get the budget exactly on May 15th. So the 45 days actually creates an oddity where you end up having to almost always or very, very commonly have a special meeting in order to make it all work. For example, I'll give you this year, the mayor suggests to submit the budget on May 10th, just because that's a regular city council meeting, and that sounds fine. It's close enough to the 15th, but the way to 45 days lands basically doesn't allow us to get to our second meeting at the end of June. So we'd have to have a special meeting on one end or the other. So I think the intent here was that, the budget would be submitted on or about the 15th, and the council would have until the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. And the reason I added or period is just as we learned this year, we had this weird situation where we did a 3-month. So I thought that would, give a little bit of flexibility there in case we had another oddity like that, basically giving the council, again, I don't see it as a huge change. It could end up being 47 days or 51 days, but sort of honoring the original intent there, which is the council has to do something within a reasonable amount of time. Otherwise the amounts become approved. So that's the suggestion and the reasoning thereof.
Thank you, Councilor. I don't have the ability to take your raised hand down, so would you remove that, please? Thank you.
Sure.
Other councilors, I see Councilor Vogel, your hand is up.
I'm not speaking on that amendment.
Well, could we limit debate on the amendment first, and I'll come back to you, please.
Thank you.
Is there any councilor who would like to either ask questions or comment on the amendment proposed by Councilor Zede?
I would.
Councilor Eigenmann?
Yeah, I think it's a good catch. Not quite sure why we missed it below, but I see the logic in it. I'm going to support the amendment.
Yeah, thank you. Other comments or questions from councilors? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a roll call on the amendment.
Mr. President Pro Tem, could I ask for clarification? The language inserted, I see in subsection B of section 6-4, 45 days is mentioned twice, and we would strike that and insert language that would say the last day of the current fiscal year or period spelled out, correct?
Yes, correct. And I can provide a Word document to the clerk. That's not a problem.
That would be great.
Yeah, so that'll help harmonize this so the language is consistent with the intent of this motion.
True. Great.
Okay.
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
And Councilor Eigenmann.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And so we revert to the original motion. Councilor Vogel, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question I have, and I don't know if this goes to the clerk or to the sponsor, whenever there's an election and then there's questions, which I guess this will be a question, a yes or no question. There's often, or in most cases, there's pro and cons suggested or explanations. Who does that? Is that something that we do in-house, or does that come through the state? How does that work?
Mr. Clerk.
That actually is generally handled by the city solicitor. What I do is I take the question, and this one, because it's a local election, we have a lot of control over it. It's our ballot. We print the ballot. And then I would submit it to the city solicitor for proper form. And then whether it has a summary yay and nay, I expect it will. I think they all do. They would write that.
They would write it.
They would write it. And I'm not sure, as Council President Eigenman said, whether we need approval from the Attorney General's office. I have to go, you know, charter changes come once in a lifetime. I don't know. We'll have to research that.
Thank you. That answers my question.
And Councilor Vogel, just for your edification, I believe the majority of the members who participated in this understood that this would be reviewed by the Attorney General's office. But again, as the clerk stated, we have to nail that down.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the members? Hearing none.
No, I got my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Tantar, I see you now.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have the communication from Attorney Goldberg before me, and I think actually any method just about requires a couple of things to change the charter. This is simply, you know, if we pass it, would mandate that we put it on the ballot. In addition, 2/3 of the council must approve of the language. And I'm assuming we're going to, that this does not do that, but at some point we have to do that. The mayor's concurrence is required. We must hold a public hearing and the Attorney General must approve. Right, and that's all in Mass General Law, Chapter 43B, Sections 10 and 11. So this is a necessary but step, but not sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. You can put your hand down now. Other members? Yell at me if I don't see your hand. Seeing none, we can proceed to a roll call vote on the underlying motion.
The motion approved with that one amendment.
On a first reading. This is an ordinance, right? So we'll need a second reading in 2 weeks.
That's correct.
That is true.
Thank you.
Motion approved is amended on first reading. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Motion approved unanimous. 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hand the gavel back to you.
All right, thank you very much. On the committee items, first committee, economic development is not met. Ad hoc committee on Market Landing Park expansion. We are going to meet on Thursday night. We only have 2 agenda items. Now that we've approved Sasaki, we have a presentation from the Lighthouse Society that wants to use $300,000 of CPA funds to erect a memorial to shipbuilding and specifically Donald McKay on the Central Waterfront. So we'll take a presentation for half an hour on that. And then Captain Latorno, who operates the only fishing vessel, I believe, that's using the embayment, wanted to make sure that we were aware of the fishing boat's needs. And so I've also invited him to speak, but he's also going to be referred to Sasaki once they're under contract, because they need to account for that. So that's all on the ad hoc for Market Landing. Chair Z, Budget and Finance.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to start by making a motion to approve order number 136, Fuller Track Phase 2 loan order.
Second.
Thank you. So I'll just give the quick committee report here. First thing before I get into the committee report, this order was amended in committee, and hopefully you received the amendment. Just a little snafu there, did not get into the packet, but it was amended in committee, and I just want to start off by telling you what those amendments are. not expansive, but number one is the amount of the bond was reduced from the 694,820 that you see to 640,000 even, and that number, that dollar amount appears twice, and it was amended in both locations. The second amendment that was made was a reduction of the, where it states 500 to 1,000 person grandstand. The 500 to 1,000 language was stricken and replaced with the number 300. It's no longer a range, it is 300. So that's where we're starting from tonight. And again, it was not in the packet there, but it was amended in committee. The committee met on February 25th. The last time that we discussed this in substance was last fall. And at the time, there were some questions about the cost, the scope of the project, the bathrooms, the seating size, and so forth. And what was updated, so just to catch you up to where we ended up on the 25th, which was committee of the whole, and several councilors did attend, is that several things have happened. One is the project was put out to bid. And so as a result, a lot of those details were ironed out finally and included. I did email everybody the bid package and so forth, a collection of documents in Dropbox. The bids came back. They did come back favorably, and that's the reason that it was amended from the 694 to 640, is that with the numbers in hand, the amount was known. And the reduction down to 300 person grandstand also had a couple of effects. One, in terms of the pricing, but also helping bring the number of bathroom stall requirements into line there. So that was sort of a 2-in-1 there. The project, of course, now having been bid and the bids having been opened, is pretty much ready to move forward pending approval of this loan order. In committee, the motion to amend was 2-1 to 640. The motion to change to 300 was 3-0. And then the motion to approve, which is what we now have before us here, comes to the recommendation by the committee of a vote of 2-1. I will let the Ward 5 councillor speak to the one vote on that, the dissenting vote, but just to add a little bit of detail and anticipation, the primary question was around the use of CPC monies for stadiums, and there is some recent case law around this that created some concerns. We did have Mark Rich, who's the city solicitor, join us on the 25th and answered some questions, to the committee and to anybody else who wished to ask. And I would just sort of generally summarize. I believe you've received some written communication as well, that the case law isn't 100% definitive, and certainly there is a risk that one could impute that this is CPA money being used towards a stadium. That, in his opinion, the risk was not terribly great, and he did not feel that it was a strong enough argument that using this money in this way immediately made it a stadium. But again, I'll let the Ward 5 councillor speak to it. It is a legitimate concern and one that we did consider in committee. So I hope that helps give you some details. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you, Councillor Mccall.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to, setting the stage, allowing me to speak. First of all, I'd like to commend the parks and associated boards and staff for the work they did to evolve the proposal to where it is today. It's more complete. It addresses the parking issues, safety issues, equity issues with the bathrooms, all within the proposal. Great job. The second, I will restate that I do not think CPA funding is allowed for stand-like structures. At the last Budget and Finance meeting, we were given an answer that seemed to satisfy some of the committee's concerns. However, those who know me know that I will keep searching for the answer, especially when it comes for the spending of public funds. I asked the administration twice to provide alternative funding methods for this one item to keep the project rolling. Both times the administration's response was an email from the city solicitor. So with a little bit of patience, I will quickly go through the email and to paraphrase for the sake of time. The email contained 3 main points. One, that there was a lack of judicial cases that would give us clarity. 2, it contained an opinion by the solicitor on his thoughts on in regards to the definition of a stand in a stadium. And 3, it gave a list of previous use cases where other cities had spent CPA money on stands. As I looked into it, I agree. First of all, there isn't a lot of case studies, but there is one that's relevant here, and that's Norwell. It was an unusual case because 10 taxpayers sued their own town for the misuse of CPA funds, and they won. The case is relevant because the ruling made clear that the statute and the intent of the statute was very clear, and the court was not interested in creative interpretation of the statute. So the Norwell suit sent a chill through the status quo, and it stopped the scope creep that was beginning to happen with other entities. The opinion about the proposal for a stadium, again, paraphrasing for time, the opinion that our stands don't enclose the area, so therefore it's not a stadium. He further opines that these stands can enhance the use of the land through a capital improvement. Now, I compared and contrasted that with the position held by the Community Preservation Coalition, which is a nonprofit which tracks all CPA-funded projects since the beginning of time. It's quite a database. They have an FAQ section with entitled "Why CPA Funds Can't Be Used for Stadiums." The language of the statute does not stop at stadiums and gymnasiums. It continues and says similar like structures, stadium-like structures. And in a follow-up phone conversation with a contact at the CPC organization, I asked what would be the telltale sign of a divider of a stadium-like structure. Their position, and they repeatedly said this is not a legal opinion, but rather their position, is that stands that are movable are okay. And if they are not, they become a structure. And structures are not permitted to be funded by CPA funds. So I asked, hypothetically, well, what about a 50-person stand? Their answer was, size doesn't matter. It becomes a structure. The FAQ also points out that equipment sheds are structures and are not allowed under CPA funding at all. But we did fund our first phase and the equipment shed that's there with it. In fact, the only consistent structure that's allowed is bathrooms. Bathrooms are bathrooms. They provide an effective use for the property, but they must be tied to the use of that property. And the third point of the email was there was a list of previous use cases. As I mentioned, the CPC website contains all the projects. I reviewed projects from 2018, 2019, and 2020. Of the 768 projects that were associated with recreational space, only 2 used CPA money for stands, and both of those were under $20,000 because they were movable stands. All the other projects that were listed, and those would include stands in his email, found other sources of funding. They used CPA money where appropriate, and they used other funding for the stands. So of the 12 listed by the solicitor, 2 projects we mentioned above used small. 8 of the remaining 10 did not use CPA funds to fund their stands. So where does that bring us? That brings us to now. We have a decided court case, Norwell, that advises stricter compliance to the statute. We have a definition of stands, a structure, different from our solicitor's opinion, and we have no previous cities or towns that have actually funded stands with their CPA money. So my dilemma on this project is this. I support the project. I think it has merit. I think it's time that we finish the project. However, I cannot and will not vote yes to a project that illegally funds a component. This proposal violates both the letter and the intent of the CPA statute. Now, this is a long preamble to propose an amendment to reduce the CPA award for the funding of the stands, $120,250, and to ask the administration to find and propose an alternative revenue source so we can continue this program. Thank you for your patience.
Other counselors? Counselor Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the Ward 5 counselor's diligence and his research into some of the limited case law that exists that would interpret the CPC with regards to fixed structures or movable structures, stands or not stands. But neither he nor I are attorneys. And I think that when it comes to a fine interpretation of the law, my inclination is to lean upon the solicitor, for one, to look for flaws in a proposed action. They did not see the use of CPC funding to be inappropriate based on their understanding of the words that are in the statute itself, or a violation that might have been then bubbled to the surface through a body of case law. So I see that our finance director is listening, and I hope he is listening right now, because I'd like to ask him a question if he can be brought into the conversation. And here's my question. When we borrow money, we draft the language of a bond authorization. We use the services of bond counsel. It's a fairly specialized kind of work that looks at pitfalls in a proposed course of action. So I'd like to ask Mr. Manning, did we consult with bond counsel prior to the development of this proposal?
Finance Director Manning, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Sure, Mr. President and City Councilors, I did not speak with bond counsel on this particular matter. However, we did deal with KP on multiple occasions. He provided the opinion last Thursday, and then we had him reiterate in writing. But no, we've not gone to bond counsel. As a matter of course, they will review the loan order prior to going out to issue the debt.
Okay, so that this will still have to go through a review process with bond counsel who specializes in advising the city on the appropriateness of a proposal such as this. Is that what I'm understanding?
That is correct.
Okay, so my preference would be to move forward on this. Obviously, I support this project. We started it. This is one of the last, perhaps the last, of a long effort to improve the athletic facilities that are used not only for sports teams on the high school level and the middle school level, but also during physical education classes throughout the day. Also, the advantages of this particular project are that we have finally restroom facilities there, as well as a place for people to watch athletes performing on the track or on the infield of the track. Usually, I think that's where lacrosse is played. And an additional advantage of this project is that it takes some of the congestion away from Low Street, close to the intersection with Scotland Road, which has proven to be a congested and dangerous area for kids getting in and out of vehicles. For all those reasons, as well as many others, I think that this is a terrific proposal. It's one that we should support, and let the legal advisors who instruct us do their jobs in the order in which we employ them to do those jobs. If we act on this now and it goes to bond counsel, I'm certain that bond counsel will do a thorough job of vetting this proposal and seeing that it conforms with law, so that we're not going to spend money on something that's not permitted by the law. The bonds that we put out there need to be secure, and that's the role of bond counsel. So I urge the councilors tonight to vote in favor of this, move the process forward so that bond counsel can do the work that we ask bond counselors to do. And on that basis, we should feel comfortable voting in the affirmative tonight and letting the process unfold over the normal course of affairs.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Khan is next.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I'm also one of the members on the Budget and Finance, so it's been actually a good maybe couple of years or a year and a half that we've been discussing Fuller Field. I want to say actually more than a year and a half, but I definitely appreciate the kind of research that has been done from the counselor from Ward 5, because it is helpful to go back and look at other projects to really understand how the CPA funds can be used, because it is, as we always hear, it's taxpayers' money, and it's really our responsibility to make sure that the projects meet what the guidelines are. For me personally, like in my kind of review and looking at this project and following it in terms of its kind of germination and its growth, is on the key aspect on the athletic field, and if that's even allowed to be funded, which it could be. The conversations around the stadium seating was actually really beneficial to hear, because part of it, we know that based on the type of events that are being done there at Fuller Field, one of the issues had to do with the turf and maintaining the turf, but also knowing that people were walking on it, and to try to create an athletic field that could be actually protected and preserved over time. Basically, you're throwing money into making something useful, but then if it's not being well treated or well accessed, then you actually start having to spend more money to improve it. So some of the aspects in terms of the stadium seating, I've been looking at definitions, what is grandstand versus stadium. And I believe that's where I am not an expert. So helping with the city solicitor's opinion on this topic was a little bit helpful, but I definitely appreciate what I just heard the other at-large counselor say in terms of the bond council's review and making sure, again, that everything we're doing is within a framework that can be bonded within the guidelines of the CPC funds. So I am excited to support this project. I think it's been, I know all of us have been hearing from the community. I think with COVID that's been happening, I see so many people just walking the path on Fuller Field, and I will, and all the emails from all the high schoolers, I really do want to say it's been excellent to see the youth, the community kind of highlight and talk about something that's in the city that's really gives them a lot of, I guess, growth and a place to be and do something they enjoy. So with that said, I am going to support this, but I do recognize, again, the process it's going to go through as it gets approved and we move forward with the bond. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Wallace is next.
Thank you, Council President. I have a question for the counselor from Ward 5. What do you see as kind of a worst case scenario, or what is the risk to the city, say, if there were 10 residents that were to sue for these types of funds? Is it beyond just the project would stop? Would there be additional costs? How would you see that playing out?
If I may, Council President, the precedent that was set was that the funds allocated 120, 250,000, which is the number here, would need to be paid back from the city to the CPA fund, and we would have to pay for plaintiffs' legal costs, whatever they may be. That's what Norwell was. That would probably be the worst case scenario.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Other councilors? Councilor Connell, you wanted to say something? No?
No, Mr. President.
Okay. I think we're ready for a roll call. To remind the councilors, we're voting on the approval of the order 136.
As amended, Mr. President.
As amended for the correct amounts, and deletion of the reference to the number of spectators in the stands, right?
Replacement from 500 to 1,000 to 300 to the number 300. So not stricken, but replaced.
Replaced by 300. Okay.
Correct.
Roll call.
If I might, Mr. President, the one thing that's bothering me is that at the end of Councilor McCauley's statements, he said, and I'd like to make, I believe the intent was to make a motion. Am I wrong?
If I may, Council President, I had led up to a preamble, but did not actually make a motion to that, as I wanted other councilors to be able to comment freely without having to comment on a motion first. Thank you.
Well, you're free to make the motion now, if you want to make a motion to amend.
Thank you very much. I will not make a motion at this time.
Okay. All right, we're back to the main motion. Roll call.
Main motion approved as the amendment so stated by Councilor Zede. Councilor McCauley.
No.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Fan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Yeah, you're muted, but I think you're saying yes.
I am saying yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor Argument.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next item. Chair Zede.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion collectively to receive and file Order 132 and Communication 189.
Second.
Explanation.
Sure, these are two hangovers from the same issue. On advice of the finance director, these were the original recommendation from the CPC, the committee on CPA, and then an adjusted or revised one actually after bond council had an initial round on it. But on advice of the finance director, we're good to just receive and file these, and the action we took is what we just did on Order 136. So these are ready to go.
Thank you. Other councilors? Roll call.
On the motion to receive and file both measures, Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor Argument.
Yes.
Next up, Mr. President, is a motion to receive and file ordinance number 63.
Second.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll give the committee report. I was also the sponsor, so I'll just kind of mix that in a little bit. The original intent of this was to govern or change the process by which transfers and bond orders are handled when the funds do not end up being fully expended. As most folks know, there are times when transfers are approved for, say, a dollar amount of, say, $10,000, and then it turns out that the endeavor is only $8,000 and it orphans, say, $2,000 in that example. Or as we saw recently last year, there are bond orders that stayed on the books for quite some time, despite not having ever been activated or used. So that was the original intent. The committee met on it several times, including last year, and actually we had a bond counsel come in and talk to us about their perspectives on it. They had some heartburn about some of the different aspects. So long story short is after considerable discussion and indeed with our finance director, we ended with an amendment from Councilor Tontar, which was to replace the language and rather than codify it into an ordinance, rather to insert into a document, which is the city's financial policies, which is something that's available on the city website and is utilized, by the city to sort of govern how finances are done. And the language, so it's not being codified, which is why this ends up being a receive and file, but Finance Director Manning thought that it would be fine. There was some continued discussion about that document and the control of that document and whose document it is. I think there's more work probably to be done there, but Ordinance 63 has lived out its life in terms of usefulness and in terms of getting to the original intent, which was to try and get a handle on those things. So what councilors should expect is, the finance director will provide some reporting about transfers that were not fully utilized or encumbered and bond amounts that may no longer be necessary, sort of in conjunction with the end of the fiscal year. And so that's kind of the outcome. I just wanted to share that with you. But as far as Ordinance 63 goes, it is ready for receive and file, and so recommended by the committee by a vote of 3-0.
Thank you. Other counselors on this matter? Roll call.
Council McCauley,
Yes.
Council Connell,
Yes.
Council Shan,
Yes.
Council Tontar,
Yes.
Council Vogel,
Yes.
Council Wallace,
Yes.
Council Zede,
Yes.
Council Devlin,
Yes.
Council Khan,
Yes.
Council Lane,
Yes.
Council Ragavan.
Yes. Anything else?
And next up, Mr. President, for the purposes of discussion, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file Order 216, Supplemental Budget Charter, Section 2-4. This was a supplemental budget request to restore council salaries for the FY21 fiscal year.
Second.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, as you know, we earlier in this same meeting, we just made a motion to make the city solicitor's memo in question public, which it now is. We didn't really have a lot of discussion about this in committee because it was difficult. There was some desire to have some crossover with the city solicitor's memo. And so we did refer it back to the full council without any recommendation by a vote of 3-0. I wanted to get it going, so I've made the motion here to receive and file. I'd be happy to speak to that, but I just wanted to offer the committee report first, so I'll cycle back in when the time is right.
Thank you. Other counselors on the motion to receive and file? Councilor Tontar.
Yeah, I actually feel constrained, continue to feel constrained about discussing this in that the public and the media have not seen Attorney Goldberg's letter at this point. So I would prefer that this be held in committee. I'm fine with receive and file at that point, but I would like to speak more broadly to the issue. And I think it would be more appropriate to do that after the Goldberg memo is distributed broadly.
So is that a motion to continue to a date certain, or?
Yeah, I would. Yep. Thank you. I would move to continue to March 29th, I believe is the next meeting.
Second.
Discussion on the motion to continue. I see Councilor Khan's hand is up, but I have to take debate on the motion. Anyone? Yes, Councilor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I thought there was a motion to receive and file seconded. Do we need to act on that first, or is this an amendment, or how does that work? I guess
I'm pretty sure.
Logistically.
I think it takes precedence.
Yeah, this takes precedence. So we basically are saying, stop where you are and move it over to the next meeting. Yeah.
Got it. And I would support that. So I would definitely support that.
Okay, roll call.
Roll call on the motion to move to March 29. Councilor McCauley,
Yes.
Councilor Connell,
Yes.
Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Yes.
Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Zede,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
and Councilor Ragavan.
Yes.
That is moved to March 29.
And last item, Mr. President, is a motion to receive and file communication 284, which is a letter from a resident. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So this is a letter from a resident regarding Low Street, which we disposed of at our most recent special meeting. So it comes to you with a recommendation to receive and file 3-0.
Other counselors? Roll call.
Councilor McCauley,
Yes.
Councilor Connell,
Yes.
Councilor Shan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Yes.
Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Zede,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
and Councilor Ragavan.
Yes.
And Mr. President, that's it for tonight. I'm pleased to report we cleared our decks tonight. We have 4 new items that came in this evening. We'll meet at our next standing meeting, which is Thursday at 6:30 p.m. And then the other update I wanted to provide you was my intention is to bring forth a communication with a budget and CIP schedule at our next meeting, March 29th. I've been working on that and been working with the administration as well, just so that everybody kind of has a heads up as to meeting schedule and kind of path we may take, and then get feedback, refine it, and execute it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Khan had her hand up.
Yes, just one thing that I did not see on the budget and finance docket, and that was communication 298, which I think was sent to budget and finance on February 8th, which was the Plum Island fiscal implications. And just don't know what happened to that, but I thought we referred to budget and finance, and I just saw it wasn't on our list.
It did get referred to budget and finance, but we received and filed it as we had a committee meeting on it. I can pull the minutes for the date of the meeting. It wasn't our last one, 225. It would have been the one before that. And then it came out. There was no action to be taken. So we just provided Director Andy Port with some suggestions, and then we received and filed it. But I can double check and pull the minutes.
Can you double check? So that was February 22nd that we, because it came in February 8th. Okay,
Yeah,
we could handle that
that's
later.
that's what the minutes show. We received and filed it February 22nd.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I can pull the stuff though. It's no big deal.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Chair Khan, Education.
Yes. Thank you, Council President. So the Education Committee met on March 1st, and our conversation focused a little bit because they had the budget hearing that was on February 23rd. So it was an opportunity for the Education Committee to ask any questions and to kind of have the superintendent walk through some of the highlights. I'm not going to go through all of that. That presentation is available for folks to take a look at. I think what was helpful to know that this is their preliminary kind of budget pass, where they kind of put together all the requests district-wide. And with those requests, it looks like, it's about a 7% increase from what they were given last year to get all those items that were requested. And then the revenues are around 3%. So there's a shortfall of 3% is what the superintendent was talking through. The next meetings, and at the last school committee meeting, they actually had presentations from every school kind of talk about their needs, from the school, the building needs. And the next iterations the superintendent was indicating was to kind of refine and talk through what all the requests are and see where they could kind of move the budget to get what would make sense given the school needs and what were some of the things identified, so that there could be different kind of options presented in the budget, so that if we see where we'd like funding to be, we have like this kind of pick list of what were some of the things identified, what maybe made the cut, and if there is additional money, how could that be prioritized and maybe move forward on some of the things that were identified by the groups. We also talked about school reopening, and there's a few things happening at the schools. There's pool testing that's being done. They're actually sending out notification to parents to find out like if they could test a group of kids together and get a better sense of the prevalence of COVID amongst the student population. And teachers are going to start getting vaccinated next week, is what it's slated to be, with the second shot for teachers to be in the middle of April. The next meeting for the Education Committee is April 5th. And as you just heard, there's going to be a presentation tomorrow on kind of the proposed reopening plans. But I'm hoping on April 5th, we could focus a little bit more about hearing more on the budget process as well, and to also kind of clear my docket, which still has a few items on it. And one of them is the statement of interest regarding the roof and the MSBA grant. So I'm hoping by the next meeting to be able to take some things out of our committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you. For general government, I'd like to clean up the one item that's in there. So I'd like to move to remove from committee communication 289.
Second.
All those in favor? I guess we have to do a roll call. Ridiculous.
This wasn't in the packet, right?
Yeah, but it's confidential. I can't put it in the packet.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
On the motion to remove, roll call. Council McCauley?
Yes.
Council Connell?
Yes.
Council Shan?
Yes.
Council Tontar?
Yes.
Council Vogel?
Yes.
Council Wallace?
Yes.
Council Zede?
Yes.
Council Devlin?
I'm sorry, is this, what is this? Is this what was in executive session?
This is the litigation status report.
I have to recuse myself. Thank you.
Council Devlin recused. Council Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane? Councilor Lane?
Yes.
And Councilor Eigenman?
Yes. Motion to receive and file.
Second again.
Any discussion? Roll call without recused. Counselor Devlin.
Receive and file communication 289. Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Wallace?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin's recused for the record. Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
And Councilor Eigenman. For the record, who was the second on that, Councilor Eigenman?
No, Connell, Counselor Connell.
Thank you.
Could you alert Counselor Devlin that it's safe for him to return to civilized society?
That's a presumption.
Not to be confused with.
Well, while we're waiting, let's see. I'll skip over license and permits. Chair Connell, did you have anything in neighborhood and city service?
Nothing tonight, Mr. President.
Okay, let's see. I'm just trying to clear things up. I'll take them out of order. Chair Macaulay, how about public safety? Did you have anything to report?
Nothing tonight, Council President. Thank you.
Chair Vogel, how about on rules?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay.
Well, if I go, he can still stay out because he can't do the ZBA anyway.
There we go. That's special. All right, Chair Shand, go ahead.
All right, so motion to approve appointment 231, Walter Chagnon to the ZBA.
Second.
All right, Mr. Chagnon has been on the ZBA for this last year, but he has not seen any of his counterparts. But he is in agreement that even through Zoom that their work has been very good on the ZBA. He is a retired GE engineer, so he's already got battle scars. Knowing that for myself, he's also a mechanical engineer. And being an engineer, he is adding diversity to our lawyer-heavy ZBA. So we agreed to approve his appointment to the full council 3-0.
Other counselors? Roll call.
Roll call for the appointment of Walter Chagnon. Councilor McCauley?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Councilor Shan?
Yes.
Councilor Tontar?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Wallace?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin recused for the record. Councilor Khan?
Yes.
Councilor Lane?
Yes.
And Councilor Eigenman.
Yes. Keep going, Chair Shand.
All right, so next on the agenda, let's approve Order 238, the conservation restriction and easements for the Essex County Greenbelt.
Second.
All right, so we had a really good discussion on this conservation restriction. This is the 38 acres of land that is meant to protect the Artichoke drinking water supply for the community. The conservation restriction, the Newburyport Board of Water and Sewer Commission is the primary grantee, but is going to be co-held with the town of West Newbury and DCR. Greenbelt is going to manage the property for open space, the watershed protection, habitat, and passive recreation. There were a few questions and comments that were made. One specifically in the conservation restriction itself was regarding Section 11, extinguishment and eminent domain, where they specify that the grantee has 77.7% of the total value of the premises. From conversations with Planner Vining, Jordy, this afternoon, it does sound like that the DCR did have a Scribner's error and they got the amounts wrong. If you go into communication 297, the land vest assessments, you'll note that the numbers that is supposed to be there is supposed to be the proportionate fair market value of the conservation restriction versus the fair market value of the whole unrestricted property. If you look at land vest, that proportionate fair market value should be the 1,140,000. So when you're doing the math, instead of it being 77.7%, it should be 91.9%. And that is actually a bank error in Newburyport favor. But with all due respect, this is still just about the land. And the reason this dollar value is there is because if there was ever any chance that a public authority could extinguish this conservation restriction in the future, they could go back and look at the value. That is not going to happen here. This is definitely a conservation restriction in perpetuity. So the plan is for this to be fixed as a Scrivener's error. And I know that the representative from the Greenbelt, Vanessa, is actually going back to DCR to make sure that number is corrected. Another question that was brought up was the procurement amount, the $875,000 amount. The values came from the original $225,000 that we approved last year in CPA funds. The town of Newbury chipped in $175,000 and DCR is another $175,000. We have a drinking water supply protection grant of $300,000, and that is considered a reimbursement grant. So just so folks appreciate how this works, the city for a reimbursement grant actually fronts the money before we actually get it. And there is the finance department sets up a grant expense account and a grant revenue account. So what the city does is we get awarded a reimbursement grant, we execute the grant with the state, and then we front the money, and then they will, once we send the documentation of the project being completed, they will send in the reimbursement. So once the grant fund will run, let's see, the grant review account will be negative for a while. And then at the time that we get the check back, then it comes back into the grant expense account. And there is no impact on free cash or retained earnings during that time frame. So with all that, are there any questions? Excellent.
Oh, Councilor McCall has a question.
All right, Councilor.
I just have a quick question. I just want to try to summarize your math, right? Is that it's a reimbursement and we'll get our money back, and the account will show negative for a while until the balances catch up, and then we'll be back to zero, right? Is that what I heard? Thank you.
You got it. And this is for what I understood from Jordy and how Ethan runs this. This is how all of our reimbursement grants go. We have a grant expense account and we have a grant revenue account, and this is how we handle it through the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Zede is next.
I did just want to ask a question, just trying to, catch up and refresh a little bit on this. So the high level overview really is that the Essex County Greenbelt will hold the fee interest. They will hold the deed on the property. Mm-hmm. And then the CR will be held by a combination of the city of Newburyport acting through its Water and Sewer Commission, as well as the town of West Newbury, as well as DCR. Is that correct? Those
yes,
three?
We are the primary, but it is being co-held with the town of Newbury and DCR.
Okay, gotcha. And then residents will have access to this, to the paths and trails, I believe, anybody will, really, the public, I should say, not just residents, but correct. Anybody. And then if we need to make adjustments for the benefit of our public water, such as building additional infrastructure, that is permitted under the CR. Let's say we need a new pumping station or something like that. Can we build on this land for that very narrow purpose? Or is that not possible?
That I can't answer, but I believe Jordy is in the attendees. If Jordy can answer that one.
Well, I'll call on Jordy and then I'll pull up. It's in one of the exceptions, but Mr. Vining, if you want to answer, that would be great.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. Just in terms of Councilor Zeed's question, this conservation restriction does not allow building a pumping station on the property. And actually the drinking water supply protection grant also does not allow building of that type of infrastructure on the property. The conservation restrictions intent is to strip away the development rights and protect the watershed, protect the water supply from runoff and nutrient loading and so forth from development. So that particular scenario you sketched out is actually not allowed, and that's okay with the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners and the DPS, the water superintendent, because that really is not an intended use of that property.
I do want to point out, though, there is an exception for access. So the grantor, meaning Essex County Greenbelt Alliance, isn't obligated, but they are able to give it a license if water department staff need access to the property. And there are limitations about how much access, not a huge super highway, but a 15-foot wide road. So that exception is in there, just for the record.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I will, I'll sort of just accept at face value that's okay. I always wondered if we needed additional water infrastructure specifically, not other. I certainly appreciate the stripping of the development. That's the whole point of this exercise. But okay, my last question is so why is DCR again involved in this transaction? Why would they? Is that because that's a granting authority's requirement or desire? I'm trying to figure out how they fit into this puzzle. Why DCR?
Go ahead.
Will I chime in on that?
Yep, please.
Yes. So the broad perspective is that this is a $1 million project that no one entity, including the city, frankly, wanted to try to step up and protect the property all on its own. DCR was brought into the mix of stakeholders along with the town and the city and Greenbelt because of the proximity of Maudsley State Park. There are some sort of long-term regional visions of protection of land adjacent to the reservoir, essentially stretching up to potentially connect someday with Maudsley. So from that perspective of land protection and potential trails and so forth, the DCR was interested in helping to preserve this particular property.
But the maintenance of the trails and so forth falls on Essex Greenbelt, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield.
Thank you. Other councilors? Thank you, Mr. Vining. I think we're all set. Everyone know what we're voting on? Roll call.
Motion to approve Order 238. Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
And Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
And just a point of order, Mr. President. So on the off chance that Scrivener's error is not acceptable to fix, somebody will come back to us, right? The 91%. I assume that'll go okay.
Yeah, no, it's in the record. So yeah, I expect that. I wrote it down, 91.9%. If that changes, yeah, someone has to come back.
Since it was a land transaction, yeah, if it's not precise, it would be nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Chair Shan, did you have anything else?
Yes, so in communication 297 and communication 305, let's receive and file collectively.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, these are the two. One is the land vest appraisal of the conservation restriction land, and the other is the memo that we received from Jordy and the water department. So since we have just dispersed with the conservation restriction, we should receive and file these two items as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Roll call.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Wallace.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
and Councilor Argument.
Yes.
And last but not least, Communication 303. This is a motion to receive and file. This is a letter from, sorry. Receive and
Second.
file. Thanks. This is regarding 57 Low Street, and since we've already beaten that one to death, we agreed 3-0 in committee to receive and file.
Thank you. Other counselors? Roll call.
Receive and file communication 303. Councilor McCauley,
Yes.
Councilor Connell,
Yes.
Councilor Swan,
Yes.
Councilor Tontar,
Yes.
Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Zede,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
and Councilor Argument.
Yes. Anything else, Chair Sheehan?
No, we did not clear the decks, but we are getting closer. So maybe next time.
All right, thank you. Circling back to Chair Devlin, did you have anything to report on license and permits?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Public Utilities, Chair Tontar.
Yes, the Committee on Public Utilities met on February 23rd. All members of the committee were present. We also had 3 staff present. That would be Anthony Finari, the Director of the Department of Public Services, Julie Spur-Knight, the Department of Public Services Business Director, and Jonathan Carey, the Water Distribution Superintendent. No members of the public were in attendance at the meeting, and what we considered was Order 230. By a vote of 3-0, committee members recommend approval. Let me give you some background on this. First of all, these are changes in the water and sewer fees. And water and sewer fees are to be distinguished from water and sewer rates. Water and sewer fees predominantly, although not exclusively, are borne by contractors, and in some cases by individual homeowners. The last time the fees were reviewed was in 2013, although not all fees were changed at that time. So some of these fees have been in place since 2006. The Water and Sewer Commission and departments are currently going through a review of the water and sewer rates as well. As councilors may have noticed, last year, for instance, there was a $300,000 was transferred from sewer retained earnings and $170,000 from water retained earnings to help cover capital costs. So part of the motivation of reviewing these fees right now was to help mitigate what was perceived as potential future increases in rates. Because what has been occurring is because the fees are relatively low and they are relatively low compared to other communities, and they're relatively low compared to the costs of providing the services, labor costs and also material costs. The result is that ratepayers are essentially subsidizing these capital improvements and tap fees and that sort of thing. So I think the quote from the water distribution administrator is that the commission felt that they had to bring this before us now to stop the bleeding because they were not covering costs. So just to give you sort of an idea, there are some fees that will be raised for homeowners. For instance, emergency calls are paid for homeowners. The proposed increase there is from $300 to $400 per call, and that reflects increases in labor costs. Generally, these are overtime costs. These are when someone has water flowing into their basement from a broken line. They need help immediately, middle of the night, weekend, whenever. Usually 2 workers respond, time and a half, 3-hour minimum, $54 per hour, and all that is by contract. So if you work it out, that approaches $400 if you take in other material costs. Similarly, although it's a much smaller increase, the water on, water off on Plum Island, which is seasonal, is that's non-overtime for the most part, but that does require a couple workers to go out and do that twice a year. Some of the other charges that are reflected in these increases are charges that are borne by contractors. For example, meter horn fittings cost $151 per fitting. At this point, we have not been charging for them, and we're taking a hit for that. So we propose that we charge at cost for those. So even after these increases in fees, we in many cases will still be somewhat below other communities. Again, there is a broad overview of the capital needs in both water and sewer departments. The water and sewer commissioners and departments anticipate that they will have a report for us and propose changes in rates by July 1st. And in particular, what they will be reviewing is capital needs. The water and sewer system in most of the city is at least 100 years old in many cases. It is stressed and it's expensive. The capital budget right now is $150,000 a year. As an example, it was noted that the proposed work I'm blanking the $2 million proposed work in Ward 6, to replace lines. Someone help me out here.
Yeah. For Phillips Drive?
Yeah, thank you. Phillips Drive, thank you. Is $2 million. So the city, and we should be forewarned, we are facing some major costs to address water and sewer lines. And this is a first effort to try to address it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Zede.
I just had a quick question. First of all, in terms of the full, say, water budget, what percentage of the fees derived off of this fee schedule? Is it a big percentage? Let's say, so the whole pie is 100%. What is this 10% of the revenues for the water department? Water 20%, 5%?
We did not address that in the committee, and I haven't seen it. I don't know if perhaps the finance director would know that off the top of his head, but I don't have those numbers. I don't have the percentage that this makes up.
Okay, gotcha. If he does, that would be helpful. The other question I had, sorry.
He's no longer with us, so.
Okay, that's okay.
I don't mean that he's passed away. I mean, he's not on.
Goodness. The other question.
Why are we laughing?
The other question I had was, I was a little bit concerned about the meter charges, the 5/8, the 1, and the greater than, where it's market cost. Is there any precedent or question? Was there any question about legality in committee about whether you can have something that's variable and just not defined in the ordinance or the order for cost, and just leave it up to whatever, to the department? I've never seen that before in all the.
We did not address that. That was not raised in committee.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. If I could, let me step in on that one, because it's not no cost. I mean, no limit. It says market cost. So essentially, it's a pass through, is what they're saying. It's that's my understanding of it. So under the Emerson College case, you can't charge more than really what it costs the city anyway. So that's the way I read that. It's going to be interpreted as, cost.
Right. The reason I asked is we had I wouldn't say similar, but question, say, with the parking fees a while ago, and whether the, say, processing costs for a credit card were or were not included in the amount. And I always felt like it was better to have a number. This is the number. And if you need to change it, you need to change it. But in this case, it just seems, I understand the theory of what you're saying, but I don't know if it's better to have a formal number so that there is no question. Market cost. Anyways, all right, I'll yield for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, next is Councilor Mccall.
Thank you, Council President. I do have a question. In your committee, Councilor, was there any talk about doing a fixed fee plus a variable? And I'll use as my example, let's say the water main connection fee, right? A 12-inch connection would probably be going to a large development, right? And while there's a fixed fee there, was there any talk about saying, in addition to the fixed fee, having a betterment fee of, let's say, $500 per bathroom or connection within the development itself, which itself would be generating demand going forward and would also, add to our costs going forward, right? I'm just wondering if that's part of their thought process or not. That's all.
So some of the connection fees and being considered as part of the rate study when they review longer term capital needs. So they weren't comfortable doing that right now, but that is being examined, is my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Shand is next.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out to the Ward 1 counselor, the market cost variable where the asterisk is associated with it. If you go to the bottom of the order, it does comment that the fluctuations is due to the cost of brass, copper, steel, which has the impact on the equipment. So it's a metal change.
Thank you. Councilor Wallace is next.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Council President. The counselor from Ward 5 had kind of covered the topic I was going to mention, but yes, that did come up in committee about the variable cost, because that was one of my concerns, that it's a flat fee to tie into a water main, whether it's development for 5 homes or it's development for 20 homes. So as Chair Tantar mentioned, they are looking at that as part of the study, because it makes sense that if you have a development, they should pay for the costs required for the flow or the infrastructure and whatnot. So I think that's a way to help recoup those costs and hopefully keep costs down for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a similar question on I&I, which is the infiltration cost. So I'm just wondering if Chair Tantar could explain. I'm not used to seeing a flat fee for I&I. It's usually for a net increase in gallons per day. So for example, in Watertown, it's $10 for office installation. So if you build a 100,000 square foot office building and you tear down an 80,000 square foot office building, you owe for that delta, then you calculate the gallons, but this just says $300. I'm just wondering how to read that.
We did not discuss in committee, nor was it suggested, obviously, to change this fee. So I can't really help you out there.
Okay, so there was no discussion of I&I. Okay.
Right.
All right. Other counselors? All right, I guess roll call.
Mr. President, I think we need a second on this unless I missed it. And there was a second. Sure, there was a motion made. So I know it was the intent.
I don't remember. It's too long ago. I can't remember if a motion. Second.
Second.
So Councilor Tantar.
I will second it.
Seconded. Not to put words in your mouth, but
I will second it.
Councilor Mccall is going to second.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Sorry if I missed that. Roll call.
Roll call on motion to approve water sewer fees. Order 230. Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel,
Yes.
Councilor Wallace,
Yes.
Councilor Z,
Yes.
Councilor Devlin,
Yes.
Councilor Khan,
Yes.
Councilor Lane,
Yes.
and Councilor Eigenman.
Yes. Chair Tantar, anything else?
That's it, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Good of the order.
Yes, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Briefly, as everybody knows, the City Hall closes down on a Friday at about noontime. Some people say a little after that, but by and large, their workday ends at noon. So imagine my surprise when the phone rang at a little bit after 7 o'clock in the evening on a Friday. A call from the clerk's office that was followed up after speaking with Clerk Jones, a call about, now it was almost 7:45 from Kathleen Sullivan, offering to register me for the COVID vaccine on Sunday. And I just point this out because there's a lot of uncertainty right now around our health related to the COVID infection. And here were a couple of city employees well beyond their workday, trying to register people to go get stuck with needles. And I just want to point that out, that they've gone above and beyond, in my view, by offering this service, not just to me, to about 199 other people. I guess there were 200 people vaccinated. And also point out that two of our fellow counselors, Counselors Khan and Shand, volunteered their services that day, seating people to see if the reaction to the vaccination was going to hurt them. And so thank you to our two fellow counselors for volunteering their services. I don't know how many people you could even recognize you under your masks, but it's good to see you there.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McCauley.
I just have thank you, Council President. I have a question regarding our roll call votes versus our summary votes that we used to make. Would it be possible for us, and can we explore this, that when we have a vote, can we just put up our hands if we approve and move on, or do we have to do an individual roll call vote? Using our hands would list us out and everyone could see our vote. And it may speed things along in the temporary. I just don't know if we want to consider that.
I'll ask city solicitor. I mean, as you know, I tried to get out of the roll call vote altogether all these months, but I haven't been able to. I'll try. I'll ask him.
Thank you.
Anyone else on good of the order? How about a motion to adjourn?
If I might, Mr. President.
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Clerk Jones.
Just follow up. Thank you, Councilor Connell, for saying that. There were others in the office that were helping in a very, very unselfish way. And to be, by way of full disclosure, I said, this is extraordinary. We should think about doing some comp time for you people. And the response was, no, thank you. It's good for the soul. We felt very good doing it. This is a wonderful thing. Not just us, it's the whole community. There's a great effort out there to help people.
Yep.
Including seniors.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to do a roll call until I get permission to raise hands. So roll call.
We could go by numbers or letters.
Yeah.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tantar.
Yes.
Council Vogel.
Yes.
Council Wallace.
Yes.
Council Z.
Yes.
Council Devlin.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
And Councilor Eigenman.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
That's all.
Thank you.